Ha! You guys probably thought I'd forgotten this, but I haven't, and now it's time to pick up where we left off. Though I must say the numbering of this franchise is a bit confusing. We start with 7th Dragon, go to 7th Dragon 2020, then to 7th Dragon 2022, which, by the way, takes place in the year 2021, and then the 4th game is 7th Dragon 3. Because that makes sense. Oh well, let's take a closer look. Greetings everyone, this is the Hipster Snek, bringing today another installment in the 7th Dragon saga. This time we'll be looking at 2013's PSP release, 7th Dragon 2022. Taking place 1 year after the events of 7th Dragon 2020, we pick up with the surviving cast from that game in the process of rebuilding Tokyo in the wake of the prior year's dragon invasion. The implication is that the team of heroes we make for the sake of 2022 are in fact the same heroes who we saved the world with in 2020's Dragon War, and had since been furloughed due to a distinctive lack of draconic nuisance to slay. However, as telecommunications are beginning to be re-established at the Sky Tower, we get a flash of deja vu as suddenly a new horde of dragons come raining down out of a strange seal declaring itself Formalhaut. And thus, our dragon-slaying heroes need to return from an early retirement in order to deal with the newfound threat, and the game begins in earnest. Graphically speaking, the game looks a lot like its predecessor, probably the most in terms of overall visual similarities found in this series. Which makes sense, being that it's on the same piece of hardware and came out only 2 years after 2020. A lot of assets do get reused, but I don't necessarily ding the game for that, as the distinctive super deformed style seen in the first 2 games is maintained. Characters have large, expressive faces and tiny arms and legs, giving everything a sort of toy-like appearance. Portrait art is all really well done too, and everyone generally looks better than the last game's rounds, though I do find that poor Corino, who already gets a bit of a short stick in terms of the plot, looks like someone dumped water on him in order to get his hair down for this installment. But at least the navigators no longer fill me with existential dread straight from the bottom of the uncanny valley, so that's an improvement. And the dragons still look great, though it's obvious at a glance that some of them were just reskins from previous games. The first ones you'll fight are just wyvern types, except redesigned to be markedly more edgy. And that is kind of a bit of a theme too, as some dragons are just dragons we saw last time, but they have spider eyes and jaggy bits. Feels a bit out of place in a 7th Dragon title to me. The game does have some rather nice aesthetic touches, for instance, like when you first traveled to Shibuya, and there's this effect where there's a filter over the game's camera that simulates leaves being blown in the wind overhead. It's all really nice. And from an audio standpoint, the game is wicked cool. I love the rock themes throughout, largely made up of original tracks and some remixes from past games, which are a welcome addition. The Battle Victory fanfare is the same track, for example, which gives the game a further sense of continuity. The Dragon Battle songs in particular are still some of the coolest in the game, and being that they constitute the biggest high-flying boss encounters in the game, rightfully so. But even the more relaxed themes of the diet building and labs have an enjoyable quality all their own. And the sound effects are great, mostly ported forward from the last game, but I mean, don't fix what isn't broken, right? If I were to take a complaint, it's that the few lines of voice dialogue, Japanese or not, do tend to get repeated a lot. In particular, when I leave a dungeon and go to sell my bag of monster-sourced vendor trash, and as I'm rapid-fire selling them, they're repeating the same one voice line every single time I sell an item. And it gets old. It's called sound randomizer software, don't hesitate to use it. Anyways, like before, when you start your game, you'll be prompted to make an avatar for yourself and a party of 3. I opted to make my Tomodachi bros with Kog as our trickster, or the thief class, Itaku as our destroyer, or the monk, and I as the samurai, or a sword-wielding tank class. There's also the Psychic, or a caster class, the Hacker, who specializes in buffs and debuffs, and the Idol, who reprises the role of the Princess class from the original game, surprisingly enough, but with more obligatory Hatsune Miku references. Unlike 2020, you can even reclass a character in your party once you cross a certain plot threshold, so if a particular combo isn't working out for you, you aren't obligated to raise a new character up from level 1. And because if I don't mention it, Itaku will have a literal weeaboo-induced aneurysm, once you're at about the halfway point in the story, the catgirls from 7th Dragon the First will return, and you can even add one to your party or reskin an existing one to be one. There, Itaku, I said it. Are you happy now? Any dang way, as it sounds like the game is very class and skill focused, much as the games that came before it were. Not only are the 6 classes very different in their own right, there are even variances within each. For example, the Trickster can equip both knives or guns, and they get corresponding special abilities that can only be used when one or the other is equipped. Samurais also have two stances, a sheathed and an unsheathed stance, which have unique abilities and ways to swap between the two of them. So you not only pick the three you want for your party, you can then further break it down by how you individually customize each of them and their skills. All this on top of accumulating amounts of skill points, secondary type of experience used to buy and power up said skills. Taking all this together is how your party will grow alongside traditional level ups, which will bolster all your stats passively. The game's arcs, story-wise, are broken up into several chapters and intermissions, the latter being much shorter and situated in between the former, and being a good chance to catch up on side quests from Sharon, the, provocatively dressed quest giver lady. The main chapters generally follow the, here, let's set up some exposition for you, okay, go kill some dragons, alright now, spend the currencies you get from killing dragons to expand the next plot room, okay thanks, go to bed and do it again. That's the sort of format anyway. I'm being overly reductive obviously, as these missions can vary wildly in their scale and scope. A lot of these also are entirely unique and original dungeons, like the Roppongi Acid Fall, which takes the idea of a water dungeon a bit of a different direction, by having the water also double as super acid, which will eat your HP away very quickly via environmental damage. The dungeons have varied mechanics and expectations, so you'll also be carrying around a couple status resist accessories on top of everything else in your seemingly bottomless backpack. Now, I do want to talk about the story a little bit deeper now, having covered 3 games in the series already, so if you're not okay with some spoilers coming up, go ahead and jump ahead to the listed timestamp shown on screen now. I'll give you a moment to make up your minds. Alright. So, going back to my earlier comment about the catgirls, that was not entirely a throwaway gag at my Tomoburo's expense. It's actually plot pivotal and one of the major things that actually separates 2022 from 2020 in terms of storytelling. While several events in 2020 mention the city of Atlantis, 2022 explains the significance, and it has series-wide repercussions, and it really only gets elaborated on here. Turns out that the dragons have attacked Earth more than once, and the oldest of these records was the attack on the lost city of Atlantis, which was able to use an Orichalcum Dragon Slayer blade to purify the bloom and crush its draconic masters. The people from Atlantis were the Luciae, the catgirls I mentioned previously, who could communicate with the spirits of metal and thus forge weapons the likes of which the world had never previously seen. This culminates in a cloning project started in the shadows in 2020, being brought to fruition in 2022, and the catgirls resuming their place as playable characters just as they were in 7th Dragon the First. And now you know. So you have a dungeon-focused JRPG with a strong skill focus and a lot of impending challenge. Was there anything I didn't like? Well, yes. 2022 very much feels like a DLC expansion pack to the otherwise complete 2020, as it relies excessively on assets and full dungeons even taken straight from the first, including the Fire and Lightning themed dungeon zones. It does have its own original areas too, but you go through a lot of familiar territory if you go from 2020 directly into its sequel. Several bosses are also reruns, including the entirely uninteresting Tri-Nitro and Sleepy Hollow. And, as mentioned earlier, they're trying to make the dragons edgier in this installment, and I just don't think it works. They have this very cartoonish kind of appearance, so there's this cognitive dissonance when suddenly you have dragons that have multiple red, shining eyes and spiky, jaggy black bits poking out of their polys. It just looks ridiculous. Also, Hatsune Miku is back for some reason, so that sucks. But nothing that I've listed here really stopped me from enjoying myself. At the end of the day, 2022 is just more 2020, and I liked 2020, so in and of itself is not really a problem. Overall, 7th Dragon 2022 is a good game, marred only by the mediocrity of borrowing from the last game too much. While I feel there is a bit too much continuity lost by not having played 2020, I still think that 2022 is a good game that can, with a little bit in the way of context clues, be its own standalone experience that's worth playing despite those shortcomings. It has a ton of customization, a fun gameplay experience, and you'll even start the game with bonus items if you have a save file from the first game on the same PSP, so that's pretty spiffy. It's a fun RPG experience that, once more, we never got stateside. That wouldn't happen until the next game in the franchise, so next time, dear viewers, next time. This has been the 7th Snek, bringing another obscure review to light. If you liked it, there's that conveniently marked like button down there so you can tell me so. There's also a handy comment section where you should tell me more about the team that you assembled to slay dragons. Did you have any catgirls in yours? And for more content every week, you can hit subscribe and bell icons down below so you'll never miss a thing. And for more content like this, you can check out the Tomodachi Bros Podbean and YouTube channels, where my Tomo Bros and I review anime, movies, and more. So join me here each week for more obscure reviews, indie excellence, and more. And I will see you there.